Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of people from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a finance come tech guru from Cairo, Egypt, Mr. Mohamed Taysir. Mohamed, welcome to the show.
Ashutosh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Mohamed is the CEO and co-founder of Singularity Finance. He's also the head of business development for Flare Networks, which is a blockchain company. So Mohamed, let's first talk about Singularity Finance. Tell me about this venture.
So Singularity, we're a new fintech. We are pre-operations. We're going to start, we're launching in Egypt within this quarter, actually. So we're very excited about that. Mm-hmm. So Singularity focuses on financial inclusion, and we focus on serving the unbanked, and not just unbanked people, but unbanked businesses as well. So small to medium businesses and micro businesses. And when we look at the unbanked in Egypt specifically and in Africa, the numbers are momentous. The market is huge, and the underserved are many. And of course, during those past 2 years of the pandemic, those shortcomings in the financial system were exponentially exposed to people, because not a lot of people could access financial aid or even their accounts during some of those close times. So with Singularity, our focus was to create a platform that can cater to the users' needs as well as their wants in the future, because everything is dynamic and we always have everlasting or ever-changing needs. So Singularity, we created a full financial ecosystem. And when I say that, it's a big claim. And to be able to do that, we have 4 products, actually. Okay. So our first product is a Singularity neo-banking app. It's Singularity Bank. It's when it's launched, it will be a full digital bank. And we have the Barhali platform. The Barhali is a B2B marketplace that focuses on serving small to medium businesses and micro businesses. But it's also a 3-way connector. And so it's not just supplier and merchant, but it's also supplier, merchant, and financial partner or financial entity that would finance that trade. So we're talking about microfinance institutions, banks, factoring companies, and so forth. And also we're going to be engaging in Islamic finance as well. The third part is a software POS. As you know, today hardware POSs or point of sale systems are dying out. There's no longer a need for the hardware terminal. We all have a supercomputer called the smartphone in your hand.
Correct.
So most of the hardware terminal providers around the world, Verifone, Ingenico, Pax, actually are looking towards diluting their hardware business and focusing on getting software POSs out. So it just changes that. It becomes a software on your phone. So it's easily deployed, cheaper in cost, and faster, and just accessible. Now you don't have to worry about stock or anything. Anyone that has a smartphone will have that. I think even Apple now is starting to open up some of their NFC chips for payments and for the receiving payments as well. Specifically, they're trying out, I think, in the US right now. So that tells you how much this technology is going to be pushed forward as well. So having that part in there in our mix adds to our value that we can give to our clients, as well as the last piece is, of course, a digital assets wallet or a digital assets custodial wallet for crypto and digital assets in general. So the idea is that for Singularity, it comes from the name. Each one of us is a singularity. You're a lot of things coming together to make you who you are. A lot of things have different needs. So we're focusing on your needs from a financial perspective. We're helping you manage and grow your business, as well as manage your financials and grow your investments on a personal level or on a business level. So that's in short Singularity.
It's fantastic, Mohamed. But tell me, you also mentioned that one of your objectives is to bank the unbanked, if I can use that term. How are you going to ensure financial inclusion through the 4 pillars of Singularity?
So with Singularity, when we're talking about our new banking app, we're looking at a model where we're going to be offering it for people for free. So you just have to go through KYC and you're already eligible for your Singularity account, essentially. So that's one of the first key things. But when I think about financial inclusion personally, I don't look at it from just having a bank account. We do have a big financial literacy element as well. We're about having outreach programs and talking to communities and even in schools and universities, just teaching people about general investment, general like financial what it is, what the financial terms are, what a loan is, what credit is, and so forth. Because just helping people understand what the tools are will allow them to use them. Because having a bank account is not just, it's the first layer of inclusion for me. It's not real inclusion. When you look at Egypt, here in Egypt, for instance, we have 30% of Egyptians banked, but really with active bank accounts, and as well as when you incorporate other metrics that would have financial elements or tools being offered from the banks, that number shrinks to less than 20%. So that tells you that even when you have a bank account, you can still be not included within the financial system that's in place. So that's one of the things that we want to focus on, is really helping people get the best and the most out of what they're using when they're using Singularity, and the most of their money, basically.
That's amazing. You know, I think what you should consider looking at is what India did 7-8 years ago, where I think now almost 94 or 95% of the population has a bank account. So that also helps in government subsidies and direct benefit transfer and so on and so forth. But fantastic to see. You know,
you're right. I think you're right. And thank you for the compliments. It's really that, because today in Egypt, the regulations, I think it's similar to what India was doing as well, as trying to get everyone within the financial system. And I think one of the drastic measures that was taken in India is when they changed the currency as well. And that allowed for a lot of the currency that was out of circulation to come back into circulation as well. So that was one of the major moves. So I think the government here as well is taking some measures, and has been taking some measures to allow for businesses to become more formal, as well as to incorporate as much businesses within the formal financial system. I think that has helped accelerate the digitization of the financial sector. And the fintech in Egypt is booming in general across since past 3 years. I think even since 2018, that was really the start of like fintech and growing in the ecosystem here. And I think as well, since then, the government has been introducing a lot of new regulations to accelerate that. And in the past 2 years alone, adoption as well has increased. If you look at the metrics that are coming out of Egypt from Visa, 690% increase in digital payments. We had an 89% increase in e-commerce platform usage of payments. 9 out of 10 people are now using contactless cards and using contactless payments.
Wonderful.
A year ago, wasn't there.
Correct. No, so I think there's a lot of changes happening, but Mohamed, let's now move on and talk about blockchain. And, you know, you're a tech guru, you're a finance guru. For my viewers and listeners, tell me about blockchain. What is a blockchain?
So without any technical terms, because I'm not a technical guy and I do not claim to be, I'm a business person. So I always explain blockchain from a business perspective in a very simplified form. So blockchain in its essence is a ledger. It's a way to record data and ownership of data. So essentially, if we have a big piece of paper and we all say that this piece of paper is what's going to account for all of the transactions between us. And at the end of the day, we're all going to have a copy of that paper. And when a transaction is added, you add it to your paper and you announce it to everyone so that they can add it to their paper as well. And that's in essence a public blockchain where everyone is the same node and they're all able to add information as well as see all of the information available on the network. So that's in essence what a blockchain is. It's just a distributed ledger.
Wonderful. And how does a blockchain increase transparency?
So as you saw, like from my previous example, if we all have the same exact piece of paper with all the information recorded on it, that's transparency, because that's what it means to have transparency. So everyone is privy or has like the privilege to see all the information that's there.
And I also assume that nobody can make changes, because if everyone has a copy.
Well, that's inherent. I think that's inherent. I think that's one of the things that's inherent to blockchain technology that's different than a database, is that you cannot amend or like change or delete data. You can only add data, and the record of the data will always stay there. And you can, like, if there's a smart contract, for instance, that's deployed and it's not going to be used, you will kill it.
Wonderful.
You will not remove it, you will kill it, because the record of its existence from point A to point B will always remain there as a record for as long as all of the nodes of the network are online.
Wonderful. So, continuing with your example of a big sheet of paper with everyone's signature on it, one of the problems that I have often read about for blockchains is privacy and transparency. If 100 people have the same sheet of paper, everyone knows who's doing what. That's transparent. But what happens to my personal data?
So, and I think in terms of like technology and how it's going to be implemented, we have to look at blockchain as a tool. Blockchain is just one of the tools that we're able to use to build a full solution. So when we're talking about data privacy and when we're talking about personal data, I think for compliance and so forth, there will be some elements that are maintained off-chain and some elements that are maintained on-chain to preserve that kind of privacy. But in essence, if you're looking at, like, for the Bitcoin network, most people that have your public key, the public key is just a string of numbers that Yes, it can be tracked if with a lot of like the companies today for KYC and AML checks in the crypto world, there is that ability to track the wallets back to its original owner through looking at the transactions, since everything is public. But again, if you're talking about the ability to delete information, I think that is going to be one of the things that we look at, a lot of people are looking at in terms of like compliance. But from terms of like blockchain itself is a tool that allows you to permanently have a record of something without the ability to delete it. Even by the owner of the blockchain itself, they won't be able to delete it. So it has its own use cases. And I think one of the fallacies that people, when blockchain comes up as a word and as a buzzword today, is blockchain is a magic wand. You throw it at something, it becomes better. And it's not true. It's not true. If something, you can throw blockchain at something and it makes it worse. It can make it slower. It's not functional. It has its use case. So I think I am sure you're going to ask me that, is that the use cases of blockchain. I think this is where people can think about, okay, does this comply with personal data and their the requirements there or not? And it's going to be by use case, not by technology.
So tell me, since you run business development for Flare Networks, which are some of the early areas or industries which are adopting blockchain technology?
I think the financial industry, of course, like finance is one of the first industries that has been disrupted by blockchain. I think today we're looking at supply chain as well, global supply chain. We're looking at identity management, and we're looking at like data management and secure data management in general. So I think it's not just, I think today a lot of people are now understanding what blockchain is and what it can do from a functionality perspective, not what it is from a technical perspective only in theory, but what it can do and where it can be used. And I think a lot of, like, you have Deloitte, PwC, and a lot of the consulting firms have been doing a lot of research papers and research reports on how to use blockchain and identity, and even in some of the government platforms as well, and e-government platforms. And I think blockchain, for instance, and identity management on a government level is amazing as a tool, because you as a citizen don't want anyone to be able to tamper with your personal data on a government level. So I think a blockchain in some instances with government will be an amazing infrastructural layer that will allow for more transparency in some instances, as well as more protection and data ownership in some other areas as well.
Interesting. So, Mohammed, you just mentioned that people have started to actually believe that the blockchain is the answer to everything, which is not necessarily true. Based on your experience, tell me, what are some of the vulnerabilities or challenges of blockchains?
So today, a lot of like a lot of the things that are being tackled, specifically with like what we're trying to do with Flare as well, is multi-chain interoperability and having interoperability between those blockchains and the data that exist on those blockchains. Because as of today, I'm not saying like really that they're siloed, but they're, to some sense, they're not interoperable in the sense of what blockchain and decentralization mean. You rely on third parties and bridges and so forth to be able to have that kind of like migration of value from one blockchain to the other. So I think interoperability, and I think as well, really thinking about the access to talent as well. In today's world, if you're looking to start and building your own team, and you're going to be building your own project, it's going to be tough. It's tough looking because everyone today is, if it was 2 years ago, people were laid back. A lot of developers had time. A lot of people like had time to work on something. But today, everyone around the world is facing the same problems. And everyone has had projects in the pipeline, and they want to implement it now. Like, it's not like in 2 days, not in 2 months. No, now they want it now. So it's one of these are, I think, one of the biggest challenges today. It's with the technology itself. I'm not going to say that it's not there yet. It is there to some level of institutional use case, but and it is ready for some terms of like mass adoption. It will depend on the application itself. And even the vulnerabilities that would exist from a technology standpoint would rely on more technical questions on how you're deploying, which blockchain are you using, your smart contracts themselves, the architecture of the smart contracts themselves. So any vulnerability that actually comes with using software exists with using blockchain. And there are best practices that are out there, and there are ways to counteract for like this. But because when you're looking at a full system, it's not just blockchain, there is human element as well. And you understand sometimes we make mistakes, like the users, the end user themselves would make mistakes. Some people, like you've seen people on Twitter who be like, yes, someone pinched me and I shared my seed phrase. Well, no company in the world can fortify against a user sharing their own seed phrase. Cannot.
Yes.
This is a human fault.
Well said.
the vulnerabilities exist everywhere. So.
I agree. So, Mohammed, I have time for one more question, and I'm trying to decide what to ask. But I think I'll ask you about blockchain. How are you seeing the use of blockchain for governments?
I think blockchain for government is very interesting. I think blockchain infrastructure is going to be required by governments in the future. You already see governments around the world looking at blockchain. Dubai, I think India, here in Egypt as well, blockchain is welcome. Not cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are completely illegal in Egypt.
Yeah.
But blockchain as a technology, I see it as an infrastructural layer that would allow for multiple use cases to exist, specifically around identity management, around secure or records, and around the financial system, of course. When we talk, and the registry system. So identity comes for me, includes your national ID, your social insurance card, your driver's license. And when we talk about registration, I mean land registry, your assets in general, registration, copyrights, as well as notary services as well. I look at medical records, so patient records and healthcare specifically. So all of those will need a layer of information that is shared between all of those apps. And I think that layer, when it is on a blockchain layer and you as a user have a way to interact with that blockchain layer and you own your own data, and allows for multi-signature, allows for a lot of use cases to exist, that allows for more control, more transparency. And transparency, not necessarily that you're privy to the information, but more transparency on terms of how they're using your information and the ownership of your data and the flow of that. Any changes will have to require your signature, as well as the ease. Like I think I will close with one simple example that would show what I mean.
Yeah.
When someone changes their legal name, they have to go to each financial institution and to submit a letter to telling them that this person that you used to have with XYZ is now called ABC. And that's the letter from the government that says so. And you don't do it with one, you do it with every single institution that you're dealing with. And it's a headache, it's a hassle. So imagine if you had a blockchain where everyone else is going into, and you'll just change your name there with the government as you did, and it's legally changed there. When they go to verify through the platform, they find it there, and it's just automatic. You don't have to notify anyone. You don't have to do anything else. That's one of the simplest ways to showcase what a blockchain infrastructure in identity would allow people to have. It's just the easing a service for people, as well as making it easier to notify everyone else later on. That's within itself a great use case.
Yeah, what a great example. What a great example. Mohammed, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about Singularity Finance, the 4 pillars of Singularity. Thank you for talking to me about blockchains, Flare networks, and there's so many different aspects of blockchain, which I learned new things from you today, and I'm sure my audience did as well. Good luck with your launch of Singularity.
Thank you.
When you're ready, maybe in my season 4 or season 5, we'll talk again on the successes of Singularity. But thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It was just amazing being here. And thank you for the great compliments on Singularity. I hope you had a nice time with the blockchain element that I had to share with you. And with Flare, I will tell you this. I will encourage you to look at Flare as well as a project, because it is a very interesting project. It's the first Federated Byzantine Agreement, or FBA, Turing Complete Network, which means we have smart contracts. And we are today one of the most, if not the most publicly supported blockchain project in the world, touch wood. So I would encourage people to go and check out our Twitter. It's at Flare Networks, or our website. It's flare.xyz to see what we're doing and to be part of it. It's a very growing community, very well supported, and we're happy to have everyone. So
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me again.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.